We often think of the ancient world as a series of well-defined empires with clear beginnings and endings. We see the grand narrative of history, a story dominated by a few famous civilizations, whose monuments and writings have stood the test of time. But this is an illusion of clarity. Beyond these familiar shores lies a vast ocean of forgotten knowledge, a history of lost worlds and silent cultures that challenge everything we think we know. In this special collection, we are going to venture into these deep waters, exploring the enigmatic hearts of three of the most foundational pillars of human civilization. Our journey will take us from the sun-drenched sands of the Nile Valley and the divine kings of ancient Egypt to the misty, megalithic landscapes of prehistoric Europe, where great civilizations rose and fell before a single word was written down, and finally, into the Bronze Age city-states of ancient China, whose bizarre and beautiful artifacts have completely rewritten the story of that nation's origins. For each of these incredible cultures, we will uncover their most baffling and stubbornly unsolved mysteries. We will sift through the silent ruins, the strange burial customs, and the enigmatic artifacts to understand why these questions, born from worlds of immense power and sophistication, remain so powerfully unanswered. This is a journey into the great voids of our shared past, an exploration of the ancient mysteries of Europe, Egypt, and China. Egypt, the dust of ages. There is a powerful allure to ancient Egypt. We feel it in the sheer weight of its timeline, a civilization that endured for over 3,000 years, leaving behind monuments so vast and so alien, they seem to defy the limits of human endeavor. We see its story written in the intricate hieroglyphs that cover its tomb walls and in the golden masks that stared into eternity. It feels like a world we know, a history that has been thoroughly explored. But that is an illusion. If you look past the great pyramids and the famous pharaohs, you will find that Egyptian history is riddled with profound and unsettling gaps, with sphinx-like riddles that have no answer. It is a history of missing bodies, of inexplicable collapses, and of entire cities that vanished into the sand. In this section, we are going to journey down the Nile and into the heart of three of ancient Egypt's greatest unsolved mysteries. We will sift through the papyrus fragments and the archaeological evidence, explore the competing theories that have divided Egyptologists for generations, and understand exactly why these enigmas remain so stubbornly resistant to explanation. This is not the Egypt of museum exhibits. This is a journey into the shadows of the ancient world. Number 3. The Lost Land of Punt. Imagine you're a sailor in ancient Egypt around the year 1479 BC, during the prosperous reign of the female pharaoh, Hatshepsut. You are part of a great expedition, 5 massive ships setting sail from a port on the Red Sea, heading south on a divine mission. Your destination is not a place of conquest, but a land of unimaginable wealth and mystique, a place the inscriptions refer to as Ta-Necher, the land of the gods. For centuries, this place has been the source of Egypt's most exotic and precious goods. Fragrant incense like myrrh and frankincense, used to honor the gods, rare dark woods, animal skins, gold, and live apes. You are sailing to a semi-mythical paradise, a trading partner whose existence is central to the Egyptian economy and religion, yet whose exact location is a closely guarded state secret. This is the world of the Land of Punt, one of the most significant and perplexing mysteries in all of Egyptology. We know it was real. Detailed reliefs on the walls of Hatshepsut's magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari depict her great expedition in stunning detail. We see the Egyptian ships arriving, being greeted by the people of Punt, their dark-skinned chief Pharaoh and his unusually corpulent wife, Ati. We see the exotic huts they lived in, raised on stilts above the ground. We see the Egyptians loading their ships with untold riches. Most importantly, 31 live myrrh trees, with their roots carefully bundled in baskets, the first known successful attempt to transplant foreign fauna. The evidence for Punt's existence is undeniable. But the central question that has baffled historians for over a century is, where was it? The inscriptions and reliefs provide tantalizing clues. The products obtained incense, ebony, gold point towards the Horn of Africa or the southern Arabian Peninsula. The depictions of the round, stilted houses, and the specific types of animals and plants have led scholars to propose locations in modern-day Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, or even Yemen. But every proposed location has its problems. The journey, as described, seems to have been primarily by sea, but some details suggest an overland component. The title of the Great One of Punt was sometimes held by Egyptian officials, suggesting it may have been a region under some form of Egyptian control. Yet the reliefs depict a negotiation between two independent rulers. Was Punt a specific city, a kingdom, or was it a more general term for a vast remote trading region? After the 20th dynasty, around 1070 BC, all mentions of Punt cease. It simply disappears from the Egyptian record. Finding its location would not just solve a geographical puzzle, it would rewrite our understanding of ancient international trade and the true reach of pharaonic power. It is the enduring mystery of the Lost Land of Punt. Number 2. The unexplained disappearance of Nefertiti. She is one of the most famous women in all of history. Her face, immortalized in the iconic painted bust discovered in 1912, has become a global symbol of beauty, power, and ancient Egyptian elegance. She was Nefertiti, the great royal wife of the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, who, in the 14th century BC, upended 1,000 years of religious tradition by abolishing the pantheon of Egyptian gods in favor of the worship of a single deity, the sun disk, Aten. She was not just a queen consort. Inscriptions and art from the period show her in positions of power usually reserved for a king's might in Egypt's enemies, leading worship and ruling alongside her husband as a near-equal co-regent. She was at the center of a radical political and religious revolution. And then, around the 12th year of her husband's 17-year reign, she vanishes completely. Her disappearance from the historical record is as sudden as it is absolute. One moment, she is everywhere in the art and inscriptions of the new capital city of Amarna. The next, she is gone. There is no mention of her death, no record of a burial, no tomb yet found that was prepared for her. This sudden void has created one of the most fiercely debated mysteries in Egyptology. What happened to this powerful and iconic queen? For decades, the leading theory was that she simply fell from grace, that she had a falling out with Akhenaten and was banished into obscurity. But this seems unlikely given her prominence. Another theory suggests she died suddenly from a plague that is known to have swept through Egypt at the time. A more intriguing possibility is that she did not vanish at all. Some Egyptologists believe that after the death of another of Akhenaten's wives, Nefertiti assumed a new, masculine identity and name Smenkhkareand was elevated to the status of official co-ruler, effectively becoming a pharaoh in her own right. This would explain why her original name disappears. The most tantalizing theory of all concerns her final resting place. In 2015, detailed scans of the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamunhu was likely her stepson revealed what appeared to be hidden, sealed-off doorways in the walls of his burial chamber. This led to the explosive theory that Tutankhamun's small, rushed tomb was merely the antechamber to a much larger, grander tomb that had been prepared for his powerful stepmother. The idea that the undiscovered, treasure-filled tomb of Nefertiti lies just feet away from the world's most famous archaeological discovery is almost too good to be true. Subsequent scans have yielded conflicting and inconclusive results, and Egyptian authorities have been reluctant to permit any physical investigation. And so, the mystery endures. The face of Nefertiti is known across the world, but her ultimate fate, her death, and her tomb remain completely unknown. Number 1. The Great Catastrophe of the Late Bronze Age. Imagine a world of powerful, interconnected empires. In the 13th century BC, the Eastern Mediterranean was a thriving, globalized society. The mighty Egyptian New Kingdom, the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, the Mycenaean palaces of Greece, the city-states of the Levante were all part of a stable, intricate network of trade, diplomacy, and culture. They exchanged letters written in a common language, traded vast quantities of tin, copper, and luxury goods, and their kings referred to one another as brother. This was the late Bronze Age, a golden era of civilization. And then, in the space of a single generation, around the year 1200 BC, it all came to a sudden, violent, and catastrophic end. In the decades between 1200 and 1150 BC, almost every major city in the eastern Mediterranean was destroyed, many of them violently. The great Hittite capital of Hattusa was burned to the ground, and their empire vanished forever. The magnificent Mycenaean palaces in Greece, the centers of a sophisticated civilization, were all sacked and abandoned. The prosperous trading cities of the Levant, like Ugarit, were annihilated. Egypt itself survived, but was so weakened by constant invasions that it fell into a long period of decline and fragmentation from which it never fully recovered. Entire writing systems disappeared. Trade routes collapsed. The world was plunged into a dark age that would last for centuries. The central, baffling mystery is what caused it. No single explanation seems sufficient to account for a societal collapse so widespread and so rapid. For a long time, the primary culprits were thought to be a mysterious confederation of maritime invaders known to the Egyptians as the Sea Peoples. Egyptian inscriptions from the reigns of Ramesses II and Ramesses III describe massive land and sea invasions by these groups, whose origins are still debated. They are depicted in Egyptian art as a diverse coalition of warriors who swept down from the north, overwhelming the established empires. But were the Sea Peoples a cause of the collapse, or merely a symptom of immigrants and raiders taking advantage of already crumbling systems? More recent theories point to a systems collapse, a perfect storm of calamities that struck all at once. There is strong archaeological and climatological evidence for a period of severe, prolonged drought and famine at exactly this time, which would have crippled the agricultural base of these empires. This, in turn, may have led to internal rebellions, civil wars, and mass migrations. It's also possible that new, more disruptive methods of warfare, including the use of massed infantry, upset the traditional dominance of the chariot-based armies of the great kingdoms. It was likely not one event, but a cascade of failures: drought, famine, migration, invasion, and rebellion that brought a vibrant, interconnected world to a sudden and brutal end. It is the mystery of the late Bronze Age collapse, and so we are left standing in the shadows of history, peering at events that resist our every attempt to bring them fully into the light. A lost trading partner that was the source of divine goods, a queen who ruled like a king and then vanished without a trace, and a world of empires that was brought to its knees in the space of a single lifetime. These mysteries endure not because we have failed to look, but because the evidence itself is silent, ambiguous, or simply gone, lost to the unforgiving desert sands and the passage of time. They remind us that history is not a static collection of answers, but a dynamic and ongoing conversation with the past, a conversation that is often defined by its profound and enduring questions. But while these ancient Egyptian enigmas may never be fully solved, there are other mysteries from the past that have been cracked, revealing forgotten worlds and lost technologies that have rewritten our understanding of ancient civilizations. And everything we have just discussed pales in comparison to the story of how archaeologists, using advanced imaging technology, finally deciphered the purpose of a 2,000-year-old object, often called the world's first computer. Europe, whispers from the megaliths. Before the coming of Rome, before the rise of the Greeks, before the first words of recorded history were ever written down, ancient Europe was a land of profound and powerful mysteries. It was a continent inhabited by sophisticated cultures who left behind no written records of their own, no grand histories of their kings or their beliefs. Instead, they left us their monuments' vast stone circles aligned with the cosmos, subterranean temples carved from living rock, and artifacts of such strange and exquisite beauty they defy our understanding. These silent relics are the epic poems of a lost world. They speak of immense social organization, of deep spiritual belief, and of a connection to the landscape that we can now only guess at. But they also pose some of history's most baffling and enduring questions. In this section, we are going to journey back in time to prehistoric Europe to explore 5 of its greatest unsolved mysteries. We will sift through the archaeological evidence, explore the competing theories that have divided scholars for generations, and understand why these enigmas remain so resistant to simple explanation. This is not the Europe of empires and armies. This is a journey into the continent's deep and mysterious heart. Number 5. The Karnak alignments. Imagine you are standing on a coastal plain in Brittany, in northwestern France. It is a day like any other. But as you look across the landscape, you see something that seems impossible. Stretching for nearly 4 miles, arranged in painstakingly straight lines, are thousands of massive, upright stones. Some of these megaliths stand as tall as a man. Others loom over 20 feet high, weighing many tons. There are over 3, 0 of them, marching in parallel rows across the countryside. A silent, granite army frozen in time. This is not a natural formation. It is the work of human hands, an act of such immense and coordinated labor. It almost beggars belief. This is the scene that greets any visitor to the Karnak region, the largest and most mysterious collection of megalithic alignments in the world. The stones were erected by the pre-Celtic people of Brittany between 4,500 and 3,300 BC, making them older than Stonehenge, older even than the Great Pyramid of Giza. For centuries, local legend held that they were a Roman legion, turned to stone by the wizard Merlin. But the real purpose of this monumental undertaking remains one of prehistory's greatest enigmas. Why would a Neolithic society invest generations of labor into quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of stones in such precise linear patterns? The most popular theories suggest an astronomical purpose. Some researchers have proposed that the lines act as a massive astronomical observatory, with certain rows and individual stones aligning with the rising and setting of the sun and moon at key moments of the year, like the solstices. This would make the site a giant, open-air temple, a calendar in stone used to track the seasons for agriculture and ritual. Other theories suggest the lines served as ceremonial processional ways, guiding people towards sacred sites like the stone circles and burial tombs that are also part of the complex. Another idea is that the rows of stones represent the ranks of warriors, a permanent monument to the power and strength of the local tribe. But no single theory can fully account for the sheer scale and specific layout of the alignments. Many of the proposed astronomical alignments are a matter of intense debate, and the idea of a ceremonial avenue doesn't quite explain the mind-boggling number of stones involved. It was a project that would have required the total commitment of the society for centuries. It remains a silent, sprawling landscape of questions, a monumental testament to a lost belief system. It is the mystery of the Karnak alignments. Number 4. The Tarxian temples and the Fat Ladies of Malta. Let us travel south, to the small, sun-drenched island of Malta, in the heart of the Mediterranean. Here, between 3,600 and 2,500 BC, a unique and brilliant civilization flourished, a culture that created some of the oldest freestanding stone structures in the world. They are known as the megalithic temples of Malta complex, multi-roomed structures with sophisticated architectural features like corbelled roofs and paved floors, all built with nothing more than stone and bone tools. The most spectacular of these is the Tarxian complex, a series of 3 temples whose walls are decorated with intricate spiral carvings and reliefs of animals. Inside, archaeologists made a strange and haunting discovery. Scattered throughout these temples, they found a series of remarkable statues. They depict human figures, but with grotesquely exaggerated proportions, massive, ballooning thighs, swollen hips, and tiny, delicate hands and feet. These figurines, carved from stone and clay, have become known as the Fat Ladies of Malta. The most famous piece is the lower half of a life-sized standing statue, known as the Venus of Malta, whose colossal legs give a sense of the sheer scale of the original figure. For a long time, these were interpreted as evidence of a mother goddess cult. The theory was that this ancient Maltese society was a peaceful, matriarchal culture that worshipped a powerful earth, mother, or fertility goddess, represented by these obese figures. But this interpretation is now being seriously challenged, deepening the mystery. Firstly, the figures are often sexless. They lack clear female or male characteristics, leading some archaeologists to believe they are deliberately gender-neutral, representing not a goddess, but perhaps a priestly class or revered elders. Secondly, the idea of a universally peaceful society has been questioned by the discovery of a mass burial site known as the Hypogeum, a subterranean temple where the remains of over 70 individuals were found. The study of these remains is ongoing. What truly baffles historians is the civilization's sudden and complete collapse around 2500 BC. After a millennium of sophisticated building and cultural development, they simply vanished. Was their society brought down by a prolonged drought or famine that the island's fragile ecosystem could not sustain? Did they exhaust their resources? Or did an outside force arrive and wipe them out? There is no evidence of invasion. They left behind no written records, only their magnificent temples and these enigmatic, obese statues. They stand as silent witnesses to a lost faith and a lost people. It is the mystery of the temple builders of Malta. Number 3. The golden hats of Germany and France. Imagine you are an archaeologist excavating a Bronze Age burial site in Germany. In the 19th century, among the usual assortment of pottery and bronze weapons, you find something that seems to belong to another world. It is a tall, conical object, over 2 feet in height, made from a single, paper-thin sheet of solid gold. Its entire surface is covered in thousands of tiny, meticulously punched circles and symbols, arranged in complex, repeating horizontal bands. It appears to be a hat, or the ceremonial covering for a headdress. But its function seems to be far more than decorative. It is an object of breathtaking craftsmanship and bewildering complexity. This is the mystery of the golden hats. Only 4 of these incredible artifacts are known to exist. Discovered between 1835 and 1996 in Germany and France. They all date to the same period, roughly between 1400 and 800 BC. The sheer skill required to create them is astounding. The gold had to be hammered out into a sheet less than a millimeter thick, without tearing, and then decorated with thousands of individual punches, using a variety of small stamps. But it is the complex patterns of symbols that truly baffle researchers. In the 1990s, a German scholar proposed a groundbreaking theory. The hats are not just symbols of power, but are in fact complex astronomical and calendrical calculators. He argued that the intricate patterns of symbols function as a lunisolar calendar, a device for reconciling the cycles of the sun and the moon. By counting the symbols in certain bands, it was possible to track the passage of months and years, and, most astonishingly, to predict the dates of solstices and equinoxes. The hat was, in effect, a highly sophisticated, portable, astronomical device. But who were the people who possessed such advanced knowledge? They are known only as the people of the Urnfield culture, a widespread Bronze Age society that left behind no written records. If the theory is correct, it means they had a far more sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics than was ever thought possible for this period. Who wore these hats? Were they priest kings, astronomers who held the secrets of time and the seasons? Why were they made in this specific, conical shape? And why have only 4 ever been found? They are objects of pure mystery, intricate golden calculators from a lost scientific tradition. They are the golden hats of the European Bronze Age. Number 2. The Trundholm Sun Chariot. It is 1902. A farmer is ploughing his field for the first time in a bog in Trundholm, on the Danish island of Zealand. His plough strikes a hard object. When he pulls it from the earth, he finds a strange, fragmented bronze sculpture. It appears to be a horse pulling a large, bronze disc, all mounted on a set of spoked wheels. Thinking it might be an old toy, he takes it home and gives it to his children to play with. It is only later, when a local museum expert sees it, that its true, staggering significance is understood. The object is one of the most famous and enigmatic artifacts of the Nordic Bronze Age, dating to around 1400 BC. The sculpture depicts a horse pulling a large, 10-inch bronze disc. One side of the disc is plain, but the other side is covered in a thin layer of shimmering gold, intricately decorated with complex spiral and concentric circle motifs. It is universally interpreted as a representation of a divine chariot, one which pulled the sun across the heavens. The horse is the divine steed, and the disc is the sun itself. The two different faces own bright gold, one dark bronze ear, thought to represent the daytime journey of the sun across the sky, and its nighttime journey back through the underworld. The mystery is not what it depicts, but what it was for. Why was such a precious and sacred object deliberately broken and deposited in a bog? The Nordic Bronze Age was a pre-literate society, so we have no myths or texts from the period to explain the ritual. Bogs were often seen in later Norse mythology as sacred, liminal spaces, gateways to other worlds. Was the chariot a votive offering, a gift to a sun god or goddess to ensure the continued warmth and fertility of the land? Was it part of a public ritual, where the chariot was paraded to show the movement of the sun, and its eventual death in the bog was a key part of the ceremony? Furthermore, the very idea of a chariot is puzzling. Spoked wheel chariots were not native to Scandinavia at this time. They were a technology of the powerful civilizations of the Near East and Greece. Does the chariot suggest a direct connection or flow of ideas from these southern cultures? Or was it an independent invention? The object is a single, beautiful, and baffling snapshot of a lost religion. It is a testament to a complex sun-worshipping cult that dominated ancient Scandinavia, but whose beliefs and rituals are now almost entirely lost to us. It is the Trundholm sun chariot. Number 1. The Phaistos disc. In 1908, in the ruins of a Minoan palace at Phaistos on the island of Crete, an Italian archaeologist named Luigi Pernier unearthed a small, unassuming object that would become one of the most famous puzzles in archaeology. It was a disc of fired clay, roughly 6 inches in diameter, and covered on both sides with a spiral of strange, stamped symbols. There are 241 impressions in total, comprising 45 unique signs. These signs are pictographic. They depict recognizable things like a walking man, a feathered headdress, a ship, a fish, and a bee. But they form a language that has never been deciphered. The disc dates to the middle of the Minoan Bronze Age, around 1700 BC. The civilization of Minoan Crete was one of Europe's first great cultures, a sophisticated society with magnificent palaces, beautiful art, and a writing system known as Linear A, which also remains undeciphered. But the script on this disc is different. It is unique. What makes it so extraordinary is that the symbols were not incised by hand, but were pressed into the soft clay with a set of individual punches or stamps. This makes the Phaistos disc the world's earliest known example of typography, a form of movable type created 0 years before Gutenberg's printing press. But what does it say? The short length of the text, the lack of any other examples of the script, and the absence of any bilingual text to act as a key have made decipherment all but impossible. Theories have ranged wildly. Is it a hymn to a Minoan goddess? A piece of royal propaganda? A legal document? A magical incantation? Some scholars have tried to connect the script to other ancient languages, like Hittite or Proto-Greek, with little success. Others believe it is not a Cretan script at all, but an artifact brought from another land, perhaps Anatolia, whose language is lost to us. The very purpose of creating a set of 45 intricate stamps suggests that the intention was to produce multiple documents. Yet, in over a century of intensive archaeology across Crete and the Aegean, not a single other example of this script has ever been found. It is a complete anomaly. Was it the work of a brilliant inventor whose idea never caught on, or the sole survivor of a library of texts that have been lost to time? It is a single, tantalizing message from a lost world, its meaning locked away forever. It is the mystery of the Phaistos disc, and so, we are left standing in the shadows of prehistory, peering at monuments and artifacts that resist our every attempt to bring them fully into the light. A silent army of stones, enigmatic golden calculators, a single, undecipherable message. These mysteries endure not because we have failed to look, but because these ancient cultures chose to write their stories not in books, but in the very fabric of the earth, in stone and in gold. Their language is one of symbol and ritual, and we have forgotten how to read it. They remind us that history is not a static collection of answers, but a dynamic and ongoing conversation with the past, a conversation that is often defined by its profound and enduring questions. But while these ancient European enigmas may never be solved, there are other mysteries from the past that have been cracked, revealing forgotten worlds and lost technologies that have rewritten our understanding of ancient civilizations. And everything we have just discussed pales in comparison to the story of how archaeologists, using advanced imaging technology, finally deciphered the purpose of a 2,000-year-old object, often called the world's first computer. China, the Beigong pipes. Imagine you are a scientist exploring a remote, arid, and largely uninhabited part of the Tibetan plateau in Qinghai province. At the foot of a mountain named Baigongshan, you find a small pyramid-shaped hill. At its base, you discover a series of caves. Inside one of these caves, embedded in the ancient rock of the cave floor and wall, you find something that should not be there. It is a network of perfectly round, reddish-brown pipes, some as thick as a man's leg. They appear to be made of metal. One pipe, over a foot in diameter, slopes down from the top of the cave into the earth. Even more strangely, on the shore of a nearby salt lake, you find more of these pipes, some emerging from the surface of the water, others buried beneath the lakebed, all arranged in what appears to be a deliberate, complex pattern. This is the perplexing discovery made in 1996 that has become one of China's most controversial and bizarre archaeological puzzles. Analysis of the pipes shows they are composed primarily of iron oxide, with a high percentage of silicon dioxide. What makes this so strange is their apparent age. The rock in which they are embedded is ancient, and dating of the material using thermoluminescence suggests the pipes themselves were smelted and installed an astonishing 150 years ago, a time when, according to conventional history, human beings had not yet developed metallurgy, let alone the ability to manufacture and install a complex plumbing system. What are these objects? The most sensational theory, popular in the press, is that they are the remains of an out-of-place artifact, or part, perhaps the ruins of a launch tower or a water supply system left behind by extraterrestrial visitors. Scientists, however, have proposed more grounded, though equally fascinating, explanations. One theory is that they are a rare but natural geological formation, the product of iron-rich magma forcing its way up through fissures in the sandstone, or a process of sedimentation and chemical replacement that formed iron-rich casts. Another compelling theory suggests they are the fossilized remains of ancient trees or root systems, where the organic material has been replaced over millennia by iron deposits. But none of these geological explanations fully account for the uniform size, deliberate placement, and seemingly manufactured appearance of the pipes. The fossilized tree theory struggles to explain the high iron content and the apparent smelting process. The natural formation theory struggles to explain the geometric regularity of the layout. For now, they remain a complete anomaly, an industrial-looking relic, found in an impossibly ancient geological context. It is the mystery of the Beigong pipes. Number 5. The hanging coffins of the Bo people. Let us travel to the steep, dramatic cliffs of the Yangtze River in southern China's Sichuan province. Carved into the sheer rock faces, hundreds of feet above the ground, you see something both macabre and awe-inspiring. Dozens of heavy, wooden coffins are suspended from the cliffs, some perched on wooden stakes driven into the rock, others resting in rectangular man-made caves, and some simply wedged into natural crevices. They have been hanging there for centuries, exposed to the elements, silent sentinels between the sky and the water below. This is the unique and mysterious burial custom of the Bo people, an ethnic minority group that flourished in this region for centuries before mysteriously disappearing from the historical record around 400 years ago. The coffins themselves, carved from single solid logs, are a testament to their culture. Inside, archaeologists have found the remains of the deceased, along with personal belongings like silk garments and ceramic vessels. The oldest of these coffins date back over 500 years. The central question that has baffled historians and engineers for centuries is, how did they do it? How did an ancient people, without modern climbing equipment or heavy machinery, manage to lift these incredibly heavy coffins, some weighing hundreds of pounds, up sheer cliff faces hundreds of feet high, and place them with such precision? There are several competing theories. One suggests that ropes were lowered from the top of the cliffs, and the coffins were hauled up by teams of workers above. Another proposes that they used earthen ramps, piling up soil to the level of the tomb, placing the coffin, and then removing the ramper. Monumental undertaking. A third, more plausible theory is that they used a sophisticated system of wooden scaffolding, building their way up the cliff face from below. But even if we can guess at the how, the more profound mystery is why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to place the dead in these inaccessible, perilous positions? As the Bo people left no written records, we can only speculate based on their descendants' oral traditions and regional folklore. Was it to protect the dead from being disturbed by animals or enemies? Was it a way of honoring them, placing them closer to the heavens and the gods? Or was there a belief that the high cliffs were a gateway to the afterlife, a final launching point for the soul's journey? The true meaning behind this incredible funerary practice is lost to time. It is the mystery of the hanging coffins of the Bo. Number 4. The lost tomb of the first emperor. In 210 BC, the most powerful man in the world died. He was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. He was a figure of immense and brutal ambition, the man who began construction of the Great Wall, and who standardized Chinese writing, currency, and law. His preparations for death were as monumental as his life. The great Chinese historian Sima Qian, writing about a century after the emperor's death, described his tomb in astonishing detail. He wrote of a vast, subterranean palace, a microcosm of the emperor's domain, filled with models of his pavilions and towers. He described rare utensils, fine vessels, and precious stones, and spoke of artisans being ordered to make crossbows and arrows that would shoot automatically at anyone who entered. Most fantastically, he described the great rivers of China, the Yangtze and the Yellow River, being recreated in liquid mercury, set to flow mechanically through the tomb, with the heavens and constellations depicted in pearls on the ceiling above. For centuries, this account was believed to be a myth, a fantastical legend. Then, in 1974, farmers digging a well near the city of Xi'an stumbled upon one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, a vast, underground army of over 8 life-size terracotta soldiers, each with a unique face, along with chariots and horses, all created to guard the emperor's tomb in the afterlife. The discovery of the terracotta army proved that Sima Qian's account was not a fantasy. The army was just the outer perimeter of a much larger necropolis. The tomb of the emperor himself, a massive, pyramid-shaped earth mound nearby, remains unexcavated. And this is the mystery. We know where the tomb is. We have a detailed description of its incredible contents, and yet it remains sealed. Why? The first reason is one of respect for the deceased emperor, but the primary reasons are scientific. The tomb is a hermetically sealed, 200-year-old time capsule. To open it with current technology would risk catastrophic damage to its contents. The sudden exposure to air could cause the immediate disintegration of any delicate materials like silk, wood, or painted surfaces. Furthermore, Sima Qian's account of rivers of mercury is disturbingly plausible. Soil surveys of the tomb mound have revealed abnormally high concentrations of mercury, suggesting the ancient historian was telling the truth. The toxic mercury vapor inside the tomb could pose a lethal threat to any archaeologist who enters. So we are left with a tantalizing paradox. We have found the tomb of the first emperor, but its secrets are so well protected that we are unable to access them. We can only imagine the wonders that lie inside. Number 3. The Sanxingdui civilization. Imagine you are a farmer in Sichuan province in 1929, digging a well. Your shovel strikes something harder, large, smooth piece of jade. This initial discovery was just the beginning. Decades later, in 1986, archaeologists excavating nearby uncovered 2 massive sacrificial pits, filled with some of the most spectacular and bizarre artifacts ever found in China. They were made of bronze, jade, and gold, and they were unlike anything seen before. The art style was alien, completely distinct from the bronze work of the contemporary Shang dynasty, which was then believed to be the sole cradle of Chinese civilization. This discovery revealed the existence of a previously unknown, highly sophisticated Bronze Age culture that had flourished around 30 years ago, and then vanished without a trace. The artifacts themselves are what make this mystery so profound. Among them were life-sized bronze heads with strange, angular features and enormous, alien-like eyes. Most stunning of all was a giant, 8.5-foot-tall bronze statue of a standing figure, one of the largest bronze statues ever found from that period anywhere in the world. They also found intricate bronze masks, some covered in gold leaf, with bizarre, protruding pupils and oversized elven ears. They found a massive, 13-foot-tall bronze spirit tree, with birds, dragons, and flowers climbing its branches. The craftsmanship is exquisite, but the imagery is completely foreign to the artistic traditions of the Yellow River Valley, the heartland of ancient China. Who were these people? They left no written language, no human remains, and their cities have not been fully excavated. We do not even know what they called themselves. Were they a native Sichuan culture that developed in isolation, or were they migrants from another part of Asia, bringing with them a unique artistic and religious tradition? The most baffling question is why they buried their greatest treasures. The 2 pits were filled with over 1,000 priceless objects that had been deliberately broken or burned before being interred. Was this a ritual sacrifice to the gods? A desperate attempt to hide their wealth from an invading enemy? Or was it part of a ceremonial decommissioning of their sacred objects as they prepared to abandon their city? Around 1000 BC, this brilliant civilization seems to have collapsed and disappeared. Recent discoveries at a nearby site called Jinsha suggest that at least some of the population may have migrated there, but the reasons for the decline of their great city remain unknown. It is the mystery of a lost civilization, a culture that created some of the most spectacular art of the ancient world, and then vanished into the mists of time. It is the mystery of Sanxingdui. Number 2. The Lady of Dai's perfectly preserved body. In 1971, workers digging an air raid shelter near the city of Changsha uncovered a massive Han Dynasty-era tomb. Inside, nestled within a series of 4 elaborate, nesting coffins, they found the tomb of Xinjue, the wife of a high-ranking nobleman, the Marquis of Dai, who had died around 163 BC. The tomb was a treasure trove, filled with over 1,000 perfectly preserved artifacts, including fine silks, lacquered tableware, and detailed manuscripts. But it was the contents of the innermost coffin that stunned the world and presented a profound scientific mystery. Inside, they found the body of Xin Zhui herself. And she was not a skeleton. After over 100 years, her body was in a state of preservation that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Her skin was still soft and moist to the touch. Her hair was intact, and her limbs could still be flexed at the joints. An autopsy revealed that her internal organs were still in pristine condition, as if she had died only recently. Scientists were even able to determine her blood type, type A, and her last meal, muskmelon. She had died of a heart attack, but her body had been preserved with a level of success that modern science would struggle to replicate. How was this possible? The tomb itself provides some clues. It was a massive inverted pyramid dug deep into the earth and had been sealed with thick layers of charcoal and white kaolin clay, creating a nearly airtight and watertight environment that would have inhibited the growth of bacteria. The innermost coffin was filled with a strange, mildly acidic, reddish liquid that may have had some preservative properties, though its exact composition is still debated. The body itself may have been treated with some unknown mixture of traditional Chinese medicines and preservatives, but even these factors combined do not seem to fully account for the extraordinary state of preservation, which surpasses that of the famous Egyptian mummies. The ancient Chinese had a deep belief in the importance of preserving the body for the afterlife, and the tomb of the Lady of Dai represents the absolute pinnacle of their funerary technology. It is a technology whose secrets we have not been able to fully reverse engineer. It is a lost science of preservation. A 100-year-old body that remains more lifelike than mummies 1,000 years its junior. It is the mystery of the Lady of Dai. Number 1. The Great Flood and the Xia dynasty. The story lies at the very beginning of Chinese civilization. It is the foundational myth of China, an event that marks the transition from the age of legends to the age of dynasties. For millennia, Chinese texts have spoken of a great flood, a catastrophic inundation that ravaged the land for 2 generations. The legendary emperors of the time were powerless to stop it. Then came a hero named Yu. Instead of trying to block the waters with dams, he organized the people to dredge new river channels, creating a system of canals to guide the floodwaters to the sea. After 13 years of tireless work, he tamed the flood. In gratitude for this monumental achievement, the reigning emperor passed the throne to him, and Yu became the founder of China's very first dynasty, the Xia. For most of the 20th century, modern historians considered this story to be a myth, a just-so story created by later dynasties, like the Shang and Zhou, to legitimize their own rule by creating a noble, ancient lineage. There was simply no archaeological evidence that the Xia dynasty, or the great flood that preceded it, had ever actually existed. It was seen as the Chinese equivalent of the legends of King Arthur, or the Trojan War, foundational myth, but not a historical reality. Then, in 2007, a team of archaeologists studying the upper reaches of the Yellow River made a stunning discovery. They found clear geological evidence of a truly massive, catastrophic flood. At a site called Jishi Gorge, they found the remains of a huge dam, created when an earthquake caused a massive landslide that blocked the Yellow River. The water backed up for months, forming a huge lake. When the dam finally burst, it unleashed a wall of water hundreds of feet high, a super flood that would have been one of the largest freshwater floods in the last 10 years. And crucially, by carbon dating the remains of children who were killed in the earthquake that created the dam, they were able to date this cataclysmic flood to around 1920 BC. This date is extraordinary. It lines up perfectly with the traditional dates for the beginning of the Xia dynasty in ancient Chinese texts. It suggests that the ancient stories were not a myth, but a memory. The discovery of the flood provides powerful evidence that the legend of Yu the Great was based on a real historical event. But the final piece of the puzzle remains missing. While archaeologists have found Bronze Age settlements from the correct time period that could be the capitals of the Xia, such as the site at Erlitou, No inscriptions or definitive proof linking these sites to the legendary Xia dynasty have ever been found. The question remains, was the story of the flood and the hero Yu a real memory that gave birth to China's first dynasty? The evidence is tantalizing, but the final proof remains just out of reach. It is the mystery of the Xia dynasty, and so we are left standing in the shadows of history, peering at artifacts and legends that resist our every attempt to bring them fully into the light. A preserved body that defies science, a lost civilization of bizarre artists, and a foundational myth that may, in fact, be a historical memory. These mysteries endure not because we have failed to look, but because the evidence itself is silent, ambiguous, or simply gone, lost to the earth and the unforgiving passage of time. They remind us that history is not a static collection of answers, but a dynamic and ongoing conversation with the past. A conversation that is often defined by its profound and enduring questions. But while these ancient Chinese enigmas may never be fully solved, there are other mysteries from the past that have been cracked, revealing forgotten worlds and lost technologies that have rewritten our understanding of ancient civilizations. And everything we have just discussed pales in comparison to the story of how archaeologists, using advanced imaging technology, finally deciphered the purpose of a 2,000-year-old object often called the world's first computer.